It started with a flicker. I had just moved back to my hometown after years away, hoping to rebuild after a messy breakup and a job layoff that felt more like a slow drowning than a sudden plunge. The apartment I found was small, tucked above an old bakery that hadn't opened in years. The building smelled faintly of burnt sugar and forgotten time. But it was quiet, cheap, and most importantly, mine. I was unpacking boxes late into the night when the television blinked to static. No sound, just a high-pitched buzz that rose from somewhere behind the screen. At first, I thought it was the old wiring. I reached for the remote, ready to reset it, when the image shifted, not to a channel, not to a program, but to a black screen with bold red text.
Asterisco asterisco, emergency broadcast system, asterisco asterisco.
The robotic voice that followed was distorted, as though it had been recorded through layers of static and fear. This is not a test. I stopped moving. Something about the voice, too slow, too calm, made my stomach clench. Do not attempt to leave your home.
Asterisco asterisco. Asterisco asterisco, do not open your windows. Asterisco asterisco.
Do not respond to any voices you hear from outside.
Asterisco asterisco. Then silence. Just silence.
I stared at the screen, waiting for more instructions, some clarification, maybe a hotline to call or an all-clear signal. But the screen just blinked again, then the TV shut off entirely.
Power outage.
Outside, the town was quiet. Eerily so. Not even the usual hum of passing cars or late-night dog walkers.
Just the wind tapping gently against the thin glass of my apartment windows. Tap, tap, tap.
I shrugged it off and finished the last of the boxes. Probably just a system glitch or a local test they forgot to label properly. Still, I double-checked the locks. Just in case.
Trattino trattino.
The next morning, I walked down to the local corner store for some coffee and basic supplies. The place was half-stocked, the clerk looking tired, sunken-eyed, and pale.
You see the broadcast last night?
I asked casually, placing a few cans and a coffee on the counter. He blinked slowly, then nodded. Yeah, he mumbled.
It's happening again. What is happening again?
He looked at me like I'd asked him to explain death.
You're a New Year, right?
I nodded. He hesitated, then leaned in closer.
Just keep your window shut, no matter what you hear.
I wanted to laugh, ask him if this was some weird town hazing thing. But something about the look in his eyes, some ancient, exhausted fear, froze the joke in my throat.
Trattino trattino.
That night, the wind picked up. It wasn't just a storm. It was as if something enormous breathed across the town. The kind of wind that carried whispers, not just howls. I could hear it in my apartment, soft voices hidden within the gusts. They weren't human, not exactly, but they knew how to sound like people. I stood by the window, curtain pulled slightly aside, listening. Jason. The voice was my mother's. She's been dead for 3 years.
Let me in, sweetheart.
I need help. I didn't move. Couldn't breathe. The voice was too good, intonation, inflection, even the soft rasp she used to have in winter. But it wasn't her.
I knew it in my veins.
The hallway light flickered. A low creak echoed from somewhere near the back of the apartment. I forced myself to walk slowly toward the door and turned the lock again, just to be sure. When I returned to the window, something was standing outside on the street. Tall, thin, wrong. It didn't wave or move. It simply tilted its head up toward my window and smiled.
Trattino trattino.
I didn't sleep that night. I sat in the kitchen with the lights off, the emergency flashlight in one hand, my phone in the other. No signal.
No Wi-Fi.
Just an endless buffering circle on every app one tried. It was as if something had cut the world off around me. The emergency broadcast returned at 3:17 a.m. This time the voice sounded different, warmer, more human. The threat is temporary.
Asterisco asterisco.
If you see a loved one outside your window, do not engage.
Asterisco asterisco.
Do not respond to knocking at your door, no matter how familiar it sounds.
Asterisco asterisco.
If a window opens on its own, leave the room immediately.
Asterisco asterisco.
I sat frozen, staring at the text scrolling across the screen. Then came the knock. 1, 2.
3 soft raps against the glass behind me.
I turned slowly. The window above the sink was open. Not fully, just a crack. But I knew, without doubt, I hadn't touched it. Hadn't even unlocked it since moving in. The whisper drifted in, soft and wheezing.
You left me, don't you remember?
I slammed it shut, locked it,
pulled down the thick curtain.
Then grabbed a roll of duct tape from the drawer and sealed the edges. Just in case.
Trattino, trattino.
The following day, I tried leaving. I made it 3 steps outside my apartment before the air changed. Have you ever walked into a room right after a fight? That thick, tense atmosphere? That's what it felt like, except the entire street was soaked in it. People weren't outside.
Not a single soul.
Not even birds. As I turned the corner, I saw movement.
Someone standing halfway down the block.
A man in a hoodie, face obscured. Hey! I called.
Do you know what is going on?
He didn't move. I started walking toward him. Slowly. Then he raised his arm and pointed up. I turned. Every window in the apartment across the street was wide open. In each one stood a figure, unmoving, mouth agape, eyes black and weeping something thick and dark. I ran.
I don't remember how he got back inside. Just the sound of whispers growing louder as he reached my door, like 1,000 voices breathing in unison behind me. Trattino, trattino. I've sealed every window now.
Taped them, boarded them, stacked furniture in front. But they still tap.
Still whisper.
The emergency broadcast returns every night, each time a little different.
Sometimes the voice laughs.
Sometimes it cries. And once, it said my name. Not just Jason, but my full name. The one only my mother used when I was in trouble. I don't know what's out there. I don't know if it's viral, paranormal, alien, or some combination of all 3.
All uno knows this.
The windows are not just portals to the outside anymore. They're invitations. And something is dying to be let in. The night dragged on with a weight I'd never felt before. After the broadcast, every second seemed stretched, as if time itself was afraid to move forward. I sat in the dim glow of the kitchen's emergency lantern, my phone battery hanging on at 15%, its signal bars stubbornly blank. The world outside was silent, unnaturally so. No sirens.
No car alarms. No distant dogs barking.
Just silence, and the occasional tap at the window. I didn't sleep. I didn't even try. Every creak of the apartment settled into my bones like cold water. The emergency alert replayed in my mind. Do not open your windows. Do not respond to anyone outside, even if they sound like family. Asterisk asterisk, the way it had said that last part. Flat, emotionless, like whoever programmed it didn't want to elaborate, only made it worse. At around 3:14 a.m., the taps came back. Not loud.
Not frantic.
Just soft and spaced out.
Tap, tap, tap.
I sat rigid at the kitchen table, my breath held hostage. It was coming from the living room this time, the large window that overlooked the front parking lot. The blinds were drawn, but a faint blue light glowed behind them. I hadn't left any lights on out there. Then, a voice.
Adam. My heart convulsed.
That voice. It was my mother's. She lived 2 states away. Hadn't I just spoken to her yesterday morning?
Adam, honey.
I'm scared. Can you let me in?
The voice sounded perfect.
The pitch, the cadence, even the way she used to call me honey when she was worried. But there was no way she could be here. My mom hated driving, let alone at night. And even if she somehow had, why wouldn't she call first? I know you're in there. Please. Just open the window. It's freezing out here. The calmness in her voice chilled me.
Not desperate.
Not crying. Just calmly requesting access. Like she knew how to manipulate me. I didn't answer.
I barely breathed.
Slowly, I got to my feet, my socks brushing against the hardwood floor like whispers. I crept toward the living room, careful not to make any noise. My phone was clutched in my hand, the screen black and lifeless. The tapping had stopped. I reached the edge of the living room wall and pressed my back to it, peering toward the window just enough to catch the edge of the blinds. The blue glow persisted, but I could see no silhouette.
No shadows. Just a static glow. Adam.
It was closer now, like she was leaning against the glass.
I'm not mad.
I just want to come in. I brought your favorite cookies.
Chocolate chip. Debile rose in my throat.
That detail was too perfect.
Too personal.
Someone, or something, was trying to convince me it was her. I backed away. And then I heard it, from the back bedroom. A knock. At the window.
Adam.
This time, it was my best friend, Josh. What the hell was going on? I lived alone in a second-floor apartment. There was no ledge back there. No access. The only way someone could be knocking at the bedroom window was if they had a ladder, or weren't human. I stood frozen in the hallway, listening as Josh's voice filtered in, calm and composed. Hey man. You okay? You missed my texts. Figured I'd stop by.
Just let me in, all right.
His voice had the same unsettling steadiness, like they were reading from a script. Then came another knock, this time from the kitchen window. A third voice.
My ex-girlfriend. Adam, baby. I forgive you. I just want to talk.
I ran into the bathroom and locked the door, the only place without windows. I slid down the wall and sat there, heart pounding, ears straining for the next sound. My apartment, surrounded by voices, each from someone I knew. Each one asking the same thing in different words. Let me in. It wasn't just terrifying, it was strategic. They knew things.
Personal things.
They were mimicking memories.
Conversations.
Patterns. But the broadcast had warned me. This wasn't real. None of it was. These were not people. These were imitations. I pulled my knees to my chest and waited for the voices to stop. They didn't. They cycled. Mom's voice returned after 10 minutes. Then Josh. Then her. Around and around like a carousel of hell. Then, just as the sun began to rise, silence. I crept out of the bathroom. The windows were still glowing faintly, but the voices had ceased. I checked the front window through a crack in the blinds. Nothing. The parking lot was empty.
Every car gone. Streetlights still flickering.
A fog rolled low over the ground, thick and swirling like smoke. I turned on the TV. Dead static.
The radio. A dulum, then a voice, crackling through the interference.
This is an emergency broadcast. If you are hearing this message, you have survived the first phase. Do not celebrate.
Do not open your windows. Do not answer the voices.
They know you now. They remember you. The voice paused. I felt my chest tighten. Today, they will knock. Tomorrow, they will try the door. My stomach turned. I turned the lock on the front door 3 times and pushed a chair beneath the knob. The second phase was coming. I hadn't eaten since yesterday, and even though my fridge was stocked, I couldn't stomach the thought of food. I kept the lights dim, the windows covered, and I sat on the floor beside the door like a guard at a gate to hell. Around noon, I heard footsteps outside. Not fast, just casual, like someone out for a walk.
Then a cheerful whistle.
And then, the voice of my neighbor from down the hall, Mr. Kelly.
Adam.
Hey, buddy. Power's out all over the complex. He knocked. I stayed silent. I brought some supplies.
You want a flashlight?
Bottled water.
Another knock. You okay in there? Pause.
Then his voice changed, just slightly.
The cheer flattened.
The pitch dipped.
Adam.
You should answer. It's rude not to. I felt a cold wave sweep through the apartment. He knocked again, harder this time. I know you can hear me. I pressed my palms to my ears, tried to block it out. But the thing pretending to be Mr. Kelly kept talking, lower now, voice pressed to the door like breath against glass. They're already inside, Adam.
My breath caught.
That was new. I saw them.
In your closet.
I stood up. What?
Silence.
Then soft, dragging footsteps moving away. I turned slowly toward the hallway. My bedroom door was cracked open. And just beyond it, at the very end of the hall, the closet. The same closet I hadn't opened in a year. The one I kept sealed ever since moving in.
A junk space.
Just coats and old boxes. Wasn't it? A dull sound echoed from inside it. A shuffle. A sigh. A breath. Then
Tap. Tap. From asterisco inside the closet. Asterisco.
they weren't just outside anymore.
The morning came too quietly.
I hadn't slept. The sounds outside had dulled to an eerie silence, but the air inside the apartment was thick with unease. I sat cross-legged on the floor, clutching the emergency radio like a lifeline, waiting for another broadcast, another clue, anything to explain what was happening beyond these walls. My phone was still useless, and the power had never come back. I finally gathered the courage to approach the window, but I didn't open it. I just looked.
My breath caught in my throat.
The street was empty, completely deserted. No birds. No wind. The usual clamor of the city had been sucked away like air from a vacuum. A few cars sat idle, doors open, like their occupants had fled in the middle of something. I stared at the sidewalk directly across the street where I had seen the neighbor standing the night before. She was gone. No blood. No body. Just an empty patch of concrete and a slight indentation in the grass, like something had leaned over and pressed down with inhuman weight. Then, I noticed something new. On the window pane itself, on the inside, faint smudges.
Fingerprints. No, asterisco and prints asterisco.
Long, slender, like a child's, but with too many fingers. They trailed down the glass, as if something had pressed against it in the night and tried to get in. Or maybe tried to get out. My heart pounded. I hadn't opened the window. I hadn't. But I had come close. Too close. A static crackle from the emergency radio snapped my attention back. The voice returned, but it was slower this time. Distorted.
Glitching. Do not open your windows.
They are watching. They are learning. The broadcast ended abruptly with a sound like a wet click, almost like a tongue against teeth. I backed away from the window and ran to the kitchen to find something, anything, that would make me feel safer. A knife, some duct tape, nails. I wasn't sure what I was going to do, but preparing felt better than waiting to die. I didn't expect the knock at the door. Not the pounding from the night before. A knock. Gentle.
Rhythmic. Like Someone polite.
I froze, staring at the door, my hand tightening around the kitchen knife.
Hello, a voice called.
It sounded normal. Human.
I'm with emergency services.
We're doing a check on the residence.
Please open the door.
I approached slowly, putting my eye to the peephole.
A man stood there in a dark uniform.
Patch on his chest.
Emergency insignia.
But his expression, it was too blank. Like a doll.
Infine, he called through the door. I'm staying inside.
The man tilted his head slightly. We understand, but we need to verify. It's for your own safety. I didn't move. My eyes dropped to his hands. Something was off. His nails were black and pointed, and his fingers twitched slightly, like something underneath the skin was trying to move. I've been told not to open anything, I said firmly. A pause. Then, in the exact same tone and cadence, he repeated, It's for your own safety. That was enough for me. I backed away and ran to my bedroom, slamming the door behind me and pushing my dresser against it.
He called there the thing outside the front door now.
The knocking had turned into scratching.
Deliberate.
Methodical. Then it stopped.
The radio crackled again.
They are trying to mimic us, mimic our shapes, mimic our voices. Do not respond. Do not acknowledge.
Do not open. And then silence.
I sat on the edge of my bed, drenched in sweat, knife still in hand. My mind raced, trying to understand what the hell I was dealing with.
Creatures.
Entities. Some kind of biological contagion that hijacked form and voice? I looked down and realized something was wrong with my bedroom window. The glass had changed. Not broken or opened. Just changed. It was darker. The light outside had a greenish hue, like swamp water filtered through smoke. The tree I used to see out the window was no longer there. Instead, something was standing in its place. Not a person.
Not an animal. Just a shape. Thin, tall, faceless, shimmering like a mirage.
It had no eyes, but I knew it was looking at me. I dropped to the floor, breathing hard, trying to stay out of its line of sight. But it didn't move. It just stayed there, like it was waiting. I crawled back into the hallway, shaking, desperate to escape the sight of that thing. The power was still out, but the apartment felt charged with some unnatural energy, like the walls were holding their breath. That's when I noticed something impossible.
The windows weren't just darker.
They were changing places. The hallway window was now in the kitchen. The kitchen one was now in the bathroom. It made no architectural sense. As if the entire apartment was rearranging itself, subtly, slowly, like a puzzle shifting pieces when I wasn't looking.
And then came the asterisco whispers asterisco.
Not from outside.
From the walls. Low, murmuring voices. Not English.
Not any language I recognized. They were rhythmic.
Chant-like.
Like a ritual being performed just behind the drywall.
I pressed my ear to the wall. Something asterisco breathe asterisco on the other side.
Then, one word.
My name. Spoken in my mother's voice.
I stumbled back, heart slamming against my ribs. She'd been dead 3 years. I screamed at the air.
What do you want?
And then, clear as day, whispered directly behind me. To come in. I turned, but nothing was there. I locked myself in the bathroom, the only room without a window, and curled up in the tub. Hours passed. Maybe more. I don't know. I stopped trusting the time. The lights flickered once, just long enough to see writing scratched into the mirror. Open and we become you.
Asterisco asterisco.
Not, we'll take you. Not, we'll hurt you. Become. I wiped the words away with a towel, but the mirror cracked under my hand like something behind it pushed forward for a split second. I can't tell how long I've been hiding. The voices are quieter now, but the whispers come back whenever I try to sleep. I've started seeing shapes in my peripheral vision. The glass warps more each hour. And then I realized something. The emergency broadcasts, they stopped.
No more warnings. No more rules. Just silence.
Because maybe the rule wasn't to keep them out. Maybe it was to keep me in. The sirens had stopped. That was the first thing I noticed. After hours, maybe even an entire day, of their unrelenting wail echoing through the neighborhood, the silence that followed was far worse. I lay frozen on my couch, the blanket pulled over me like a child's shield against the monsters, as if it could stop what I now knew was very real. My phone had died hours ago. The last message from my brother simply read, "Don't let them in, even if they sound like me." That message haunted me more than any emergency broadcast could. I had been surviving on bottled water and protein bars from my earthquake kit. The light from outside still pulsed a sick, artificial gray, and the shadow things, those tall, slithering figures, had stopped banging on the glass. But that made it worse.
The sudden quiet wasn't peace.
It was patience. They were waiting. Sometime around what I guessed was midnight, I heard a knock at the front door.
Not scratching.
Not slamming.
Just knocking. 3 slow, deliberate raps.
Then a pause. Then a familiar voice, trembling, soft. "Ryan, it's me. It's Melissa. I got out.
Please open the door." My heart cracked inside my chest.
Melissa was my sister. She lived across the city. She'd been silent since the first broadcast. And now, here she was, right outside my apartment. I almost sprinted to the door. I nearly screamed with relief. But something, some inner thread of reason or dread, tightened in me. My brother's last message replayed in my mind. "Don't let them in, even if they sound like me."
My breath itched. I pressed my ear to the door.
"I've been walking for hours. They're everywhere."
"Please, Ryan. I'm scared. I don't want to be out here."
She sobbed. It sounded so real. Not distorted. Not hollow. So human. But I didn't speak.
I barely breathed.
I watched the peephole, the fisheye lens distorting the hallway. But it was empty. No one was standing there.
I stepped back, panic swelling inside me like a scream trapped in my ribs.
Then the knock came again.
Faster this time.
More desperate.
Ryan, please.
I know you're in there. Why won't you let me in? It's me.
It's me, it's me, it's me.
I stumbled backward into the hallway, heart slamming against my ribs like it wanted out. And then it changed. The voice outside, the one that had sounded like my sister, grew hollow. Flat. Wrong.
Open the door, Ryan.
Not a plea. A command. Let us in. More voices now, overlapping. Some whispered, others screamed, but all of them were speaking through her voice, through my sister's voice.
Like a chorus of puppets trapped behind a cracked mask.
I ran to the back of the apartment. Into the bathroom. I locked the door and turned on the faucet to drown them out. But nothing came. No water.
Just dry pipes wheezing like something dying.
The knocking stopped. The apartment went still again. I don't know how long I was in the bathroom. Maybe hours. When I finally came out, the hallway was dark. Not dark like the lights were off. Dark like there wasn't supposed to be light anymore. The windows glowed faintly, like the air outside was thick with static. And then I saw it. The window in the kitchen was cracked.
Just a little.
Barely noticeable. A sliver of open air. Something had been in here. I dropped to the ground and crawled forward, scanning the apartment. The front door was still locked.
Every other window untouched.
But something in the air had changed. Heavier. Like breathing in water. A small, wet trail marked the hardwood floor, tiny shifting smears like slug slime, leading from the window backslash, toward the hall closet. I hadn't opened that closet in weeks. It was always empty. Just cleaning supplies and a dusty vacuum. But now, its door was ajar.
Only a sliver.
I approached it with trembling hands. Each step made the silence feel thicker, pressing in on my ears like cotton soaked in static.
Then something inside the closet. Breathed. A slow inhale. Wet.
Raspy. It wasn't the same as before. Whatever had been outside, knocking and whispering, had found a way in, and it was hiding. I ran back, grabbed the emergency flashlight, and pointed it into the closet. Nothing. Just shelves.
Mops. Shadows.
But as I turned to walk away, something moved behind the coats.
A shifting, slithering motion.
And then, an arm.
Pale.
Too long. Not bone but tendon stretched like wet paper, curling slowly around the edge of the shelf. I slammed the closet shut and pushed the dresser in front of it. I didn't look back. I didn't speak.
He just sat in the middle of the living room, staring at the cracked kitchen window, waiting for dawn.
Except dawn never came. The sky didn't brighten. The street remained frozen in that sickly gray tone. The sirens never returned. And then the emergency broadcast came back.
A new message.
This is not a test. If you are still alive, remain silent.
Do not open your doors. Do not open your windows.
Do not respond to voices. Even if they sound like someone you know. They are learning. That last part chilled me more than anything else. They are learning. They had learned to mimic my sister. They had learned to break into my home. Now, they were learning to wait. And I could feel it, even now, as I sit alone in this silent room.
Behind the closet door. Behind the peeling drywall.
Behind the eyes of people who used to be human. They're learning. And soon, I think they'll learn how to open doors on their own. They are learning. That message echoed in my skull like a funeral bell. I hadn't slept in 2 days, maybe 3. I didn't dare. Sleep was when the whispers crept in, sliding beneath the doorframe, curling into my ears like silk threads dipped in poison. I stayed awake by force, biting my tongue, digging my nails into my arms, anything to stay grounded while the world outside my windows rotted. The cracked kitchen window had been sealed, duct-taped, boarded, and blocked with every heavy object I could push. But it didn't matter. They'd already been in. They'd already left something behind.
The closet was silent now.
No breath. No rustling. But I hadn't moved the dresser. I wouldn't. I couldn't. Every instinct in me knew what was behind that door wasn't gone.
Just dormant.
Waiting. And all I could do was sit in my living room and wait back. Then the power died. The TV, which had shown the static emergency banner for days, went black.
The hum of the fridge, gone. The single ceiling light flickered out like a candle in the wind.
My apartment fell into the deepest silence I'd ever known.
A silence so total no call there my own heartbeat inside my skull.
And then, the static returned. Not on the TV. Not through a radio. But inside my walls. It was faint at first, like white noise leaking through the drywall. Then it sharpened. A voice.
Metallic.
Broken.
Familiar.
This is not a test. It was the broadcast voice. But wrong.
Asterisco tu asterisco wrong.
The cadence was off.
The pauses too long.
The tone mimicked, not real. If you are hearing this, you are already compromised. My skin went ice cold. You let them in. No, I didn't, I whispered to myself. I didn't. But the voice inside the walls continued, growing louder, clearer. They will wear your skin. Speak with your tongue. And when the time comes, they will walk into the homes of others, using your face.
He stumbled back from the wall, my hands shaking.
I was alone. I had stayed quiet. I had followed every rule. Hadn't I?
A knock at the door snapped me from the trance. No, not a knock.
A series of knocks.
Rapid. Insistent. Frantic.
I didn't move. Then came the voice. Ryan. Buddy, it's me.
It's Marcus. Marcus. My best friend. My old college roommate. He saw the broadcasts, man. He drove all the way from Nevada.
I came to get you.
Please open up.
My chest seized. Marcus had no way of knowing where I lived. I hadn't spoken to him in months. Not since before the sky changed.
Come on, man.
It's me.
Remember the trip to Taoe?
The raccoon in the dumpster? Come on. I stepped toward the peephole and looked. And there he was. Exactly as I remembered him. Tall, bearded, baseball cap twisted backward. Smiling. But the longer I stared, the more off he looked. His smile never dropped. His mouth never moved. Yet I could still hear his voice, speaking, clear as day. Please. I'm real.
You're not crazy.
Let me in. His mouth remained frozen in that too-wide smile. I staggered away from the door and grabbed my flashlight. Pointed it at the floor, at the ceiling. Anything to distract myself from what I knew was happening. That thing outside wasn't Marcus. It wasn't anyone. It had learned a face. A voice. A story. And now it was trying to walk into my life like it belonged.
He backed into the kitchen, my hand brushing over the window barricade.
That's when I noticed something new. A hole. Tiny.
Like a puncture through the wood.
The size of a pen tip. And from it, something watched. An eye. Not human. It blinked sideways. I screamed and stumbled back.
Maya lit the emergency radio on the counter.
It toppled over, and the dial spun wildly, static flaring, then a voice burst through.
Repeat. Do not trust the emergency broadcast.
They are mimicking it. They are inside. The voice was new.
Sharp.
Tired. Human. A man. They use the frequencies. They use our own voices. The real government, whatever's left, is in the blackout zones. Stay away from windows.
Stay off the network. Asterisco trust only yourself. Asterisco.
And then it cut to static again.
He stood paralyzed, heart hammering so loudly it drowned the word. Another knock.
Softer.
From the old closet. Asterisco no asterisco.
Not now. Not again. I turned, flashlight trembling in my grip, and faced the sealed door. The dresser sat perfectly still.
Dust undisturbed.
Then, the whisper came. Ryan.
My name.
So faint, like it was being breathed through water. I'm cold. It was my own voice.
I'm scared, Ryan.
My voice.
Let me out.
I dropped the flashlight. Darkness swallowed the hallway. But I didn't need light anymore. I knew where it was. What it was. What it had learned. I ran to the kitchen, flung open drawers, pulled knives, matches, bottles of rubbing alcohol. If this thing had made my apartment its nest, if it had learned me, then I had only one option left.
Burn it down.
I shoved towels into cabinets, soaked them in alcohol, smashed furniture into a pile near the closet.
Every movement automatic, mechanical.
Like my body had taken over while my mind spiraled.
Outside, the sky flashed white.
Thunder cracked, but there were no clouds. And then, a third voice joined the others. It came from inside the apartment. From behind me. Ryan. I turned slowly. Standing in the middle of my living room was me. My face. My body. My stance. Only not. It was too smooth. Too tall. Its skin moved like fabric over writhing things. Its eyes glowed faintly, not with light, but intention. Ryan, it said again, with a smile far too wide. It's time.
He lit the match.
Tossed it onto the pile. Flames roared up the walls instantly, catching the alcohol-soaked fabric.
The light blinded me, washed out everything in violent orange.
The creature didn't move. It only watched me burn the apartment, its nest, around us. Then it stepped backward, into the flames. And melted. Like wax.
No scream.
No hiss.
Just silence.
I ran to the door, flung it open, sprinted down the stairs and into the street. And stopped. Dozens, maybe hundreds, of people stood outside. All frozen. All facing the building. Every one of them wore a familiar face. My face. They blinked once, in unison. Then tilted their heads. Then they smiled. I ran. Through alleys. Past overturned cars.
Through shattered intersections.
The emergency sirens returned behind me, but now they were in my voice. Please remain calm. The event is under control. Your safety is our priority. Lies. All lies. I don't know how long I ran. Hours. Days. But I made it to the woods outside the city, to an old ranger station long since abandoned. I barricaded myself inside and found a working radio transmitter. I've been broadcasting ever since.
A new emergency broadcast.
This is not a test.
Do not open your doors. Do not open your windows.
Do not respond to voices. Even if they sound like someone you love. Even if they sound like yourself. They are learning. They are replacing. And they are coming. Asterisk asterisk. If you hear this, if you're still you, do what I did.
Asterisco asterisco burn the mimic. Destroy the voice.
Disappear. Asterisk asterisk. Because once they learn everything about you, they don't knock. They walk in like they already live there.